you've watched a few movies in your time. Anything from comedies to action movies and horror flicks. You name it, I bet you've seen it. Probably even thinking you've seen something like this before. You see, film is a visual language. Just like we have to learn how to read and write, you have to learn how to make sense of what you see on the screen. We have to understand the complex language of film and television. Most of the film and television programs you watch begin in a place like this, production house. They begin with an idea which is usually discussed in a script meeting, like this one. And once the story is decided upon, the writer will sit down and write the script. How's it going, gang? Then the finished script goes into production. It's when the cast and crew take the script and shoot the film or video.
Recording and action.
And finally, there's post-production, where the footage is edited into the final version we see on our screens. Hey, George.
Hey, Jude.
What are you working on?
I'm making this horror film about a serial killer that's on the loose, and there's this girl stuck at work.
Yeah, well, I wrote the script for that.
Really?
Yeah.
Come and have a look at the last bit.
The killer gets it in the end, but just when you thought it was safe. Well, you know how these things go. It's a horror flick. You think they're dead, but are they? You just can't get rid of them that easily. Frank, don't do that.
Sorry. What are you doing anyway? You're talking to yourself again.
No, I'm just explaining a horror film that I wrote.
What's it about?
Pretty standard horror flick, you know, girl left alone at work by herself, serial killer on the loose.
And what happened in the end? Did they get the killer?
Oh, of course they do.
Yeah, but did he really die?
Oh, I'm not going to tell you that, Frank. You're going to have to watch it and find out.
I'll tell you the truth, Judy, I'm not really all that keen on horror movies.
No? You're not scared, are you, Frank?
No. Hey, look, I'm an action junkie, okay? Give me an action film any day. I love the chases and the fights and the cars and how they arrest the bad guy at the end, snap the cuffs on him and say, hey, you're busted.
Jeez, Frank, I think you've missed your calling.
Frank.
Sorry, Judy, better go.
See you, Frank.
See ya.
Come on, we're waiting for you, man.
Sorry, I'm coming. We all have our favourite types of films. Horror, romance, action and drama are some of the most popular genres. For most of us, watching one or two of these types of films will give us enough of an understanding of how the next movie will be. This is usually because genres have conventions that are easily recognisable. For instance, horror fans can expect the killer to come back at the end for one last scare. People who like romantic comedies know that the unlikely couple will eventually share a kiss. And a high-octane action flick is likely to contain at least one car chase and a couple of explosions before the hero wins out. These are all conventional elements of a genre film's narrative structure. We make sense of the film by recognising these elements and reacting to them.
And we'll do it from the top.
Okay. Was just a bit of gas spark.
Rarely do narrative films draw attention to the stylistic elements that help make up the film's form, like the lighting, the sound, the editing, the camera angles. Usually these things are hidden from the viewer so as to create a kind of on-screen reality. But nothing about film is real. So we need to learn how to recognise and understand the different film techniques that help a non-print text convey meaning.
All right, everyone, let's go for a take.
And recording.
And action.
First thing I need to do is grab another cup of coffee.
Judy,
Can I speak to you for a moment, please?
Hi, Paul.
Judy, have you finished that script yet? The one about the language of film and television?
Oh, no, not yet. I'm still working on it.
I really need it on my desk by 9 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I was going to stay back later tonight and finish it off.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Judy.
Thanks.
Oh, would you mind shutting the door, please?
Yeah. Much like a novel or short story, the narrative elements of a conventional narrative film usually unfold through its characters, and in particular through the central character or the protagonist. We're usually introduced to the protagonist at the very beginning of the film. The actions of this character, the obstacles that befall him or her, and the way in which he or she deals with them usually work to propel the story forward to its endpoint or climax. But when we see a film, we don't only engage with the narrative, nor do we make sense of a film like we'd make sense of a novel or short story by interpreting the words on the page. A film text has its own unique way of communicating with the viewer. In order for us to fully understand a film, we need to understand the techniques and features of the film medium.
The 4 points, I think, are a really good guide to getting on top of reading these films as text. And the 4 points that are important for us to think about when we're doing this are certainly cinematography, what the camera is doing, the way the camera sees the action, where the camera is placed. Secondly, I think it's important to think about what goes into the field of vision for the camera, and that's often given the term mise en scène, the French term which means literally that which is placed into the scene or into the action of the scene. And that can be a various range of things. Thirdly, I think, and importantly, is the issue of sound. Where does sound come from? Is it a soundtrack? Is it a popular song? Is it playing within the environment of the action, or is it coming imposed on top of the action? Fourthly, and I think in a sense, where the film is actually made is in the editing room. The idea of how a film is cut, how shots are put together.
Most people have heard of editing, camera shots and placing sound to film. But how many of them actually notice it? And how many of you have heard of the term mise en scène?
Costume and setting we would usually consider as part of mise en scène, that which is put into the scene. We often take costume and setting for granted, particularly in films that are set in a contemporary setting. However, nothing goes into the shot that isn't totally the object of someone's design, usually the director, or in this case, the costume designer or the set designer.
Watch this scene again and see how the alterations to the mise en scène alter the way in which we perceive the action. First thing I'll do is go and grab another cup of coffee.
Judy, can I speak to you for a moment, please?
Yeah. Hi, Paul.
Judy, have you finished that script yet? The one about the language of film and television?
Oh, no, not yet. I'm still working on it.
I need it on my desk by 9 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I was going to stay back tonight and finish it off.
Okay, thanks, Judy.
Thanks.
And close the door. Judy, can I see you for a moment, please?
Hi, Paul.
Judy, have you finished that script yet? The one about the language of film and television?
Oh, no, not yet. I'm still finishing it off.
Look, I'd really need it by 9 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I'll stay back tonight and I'll finish it off.
That'd be great. Thanks, Judy.
Thanks.
Judy, could you shut the door, please?
These choices of costume and set design have, again, a very strong impression both on the characters in the action and on the spectator viewing the scene. Beyond that, we think about the way a scene is lit. Now, that may also be seen as part of mise-en-scène, but it is important for cinematography as well. Camera men, camera women are always very much concerned about the way a scene is lit and how that impacts on what the camera sees.
So I'm going to be scary?
Down there, crouching behind the couch.
Yeah.
All right, now be scary, okay?
All right, see what I can do.
Let me show you how changes to lighting and contrast can greatly influence the impact of a scene. As you can see here, this doesn't seem very scary, right? The room is well lit, you can see Frank, and you can see George hiding at the side of the couch. Overall, there's very little impact to the scene. But now, hit the lights. By altering the lighting and contrast of the scene, you immediately notice a change in mood and atmosphere. A director can use the lighting to guide the viewer's attention to certain objects and to conceal others. It's just like in a horror movie where the killer emerges from the darkness into a shaft of light. Okay, hit the lights. Thanks, guys.
Was that it?
Thanks.
Was I scary enough?
Yeah. Terrifying.
So as you can see, it's not just the characters' words that need to be understood. Film is a visual language, and just as we learn to recognise letters and words and the meanings that they signify, we also need to learn to read movie text and recognise the different elements that make up a film's form, so as to make meaning and draw conclusions. In short, we make sense of film by recognising both its narrative and stylistic elements and reacting to them. Write that one down. Come in.
Hey, Jude. How's it going?
Yeah, almost done.
Cool. I'm gonna head home, okay? Just thought I'd let you know you're the last one here.
I'll come with you, I've got to grab a coffee.
Cool.
Last night around 12 p.m, a serial killer escaped
Jude,
from Brunswick detention.
give me a ride here by yourself.
He was seen
Yeah, I'm always here late, I'll be fine.
blue
Well, you might want to make sure you lock the door behind me, okay?
24T.
Why? Is something wrong?
You heard the report on the news, right?
What report?
About the escaped killer.
May be related to the
He's a real
serial killer
psycho.
who killed around 12 people in the Brunswick area in the late 90s.
Oh, don't worry, you'll be fine. Just make sure you lock the door, okay?
This man is extremely dangerous. If you do see him, please do not try and apprehend him yourself, but rather call police.
Bye, Judy.
See you, Frank.
Did you lock it?
Yeah, I locked it.
Bye.
Bye. Camera, or cinematography as we sometimes call it, is a major element in the production of all film and television programs. It's what the camera captures, so ultimately it's what we see on our screen. There are many different aspects which make up this important field, and as you saw earlier, lighting is just one of them. Other areas of camera include framing, camera shots, camera angles, and movement.
Classically, that is commercially, And traditionally, cinematography is about camera movement, about the way that light works with what the camera sees. We might also extend that to issues of colour. But primarily, I think we often think about cinematography and camera work when we don't notice it, that idea of the stable camera. But beyond that, and perhaps much more popular these days with films like The Blair Witch Project or films like Woody Allen's Husbands and Wives, the camera, moving camera, is a really important way of portraying a scene.
The framing's important because it controls, within 4 walls, the image for the viewer. The framing controls the vantage point from which the viewer can watch the action. These include front-on, from behind, and side-on shots. The framing also controls the angle at which objects within the shot are shown. The angle in which something is shot can greatly alter its effect. For instance, a high-angle shot, which involves shooting something from above, can make the subject look smaller. And a low-angle shot, which is shot from below, can make the object seem larger or more powerful than what they are. And a Dutch angle shot, or Dutch tilt, where the camera is tilted on an angle, can provide a sense of disorientation or uneasiness for the viewer. Framing also controls the sense of distance between the viewer and the action on the screen. Here's a quick rundown of some of the types of shots and the way they can be used. They are the extreme long shot, usually reserved for framing landscapes, cities and coastlines, and in which the human body is barely visible. The long shot, in which the human figures are prominent but in which the landscape still dominates. The medium long shot, where people can be seen from about the knees up. The medium shot, in which they can be seen from the waist up. The medium close-up, which frames someone from the chest up. The close-up, which usually focuses on a face or a specific object. And the extreme close-up, in which the framing focuses the viewer's attention on detail. Remember that the context of the film's narrative will influence the meaning that is made by the framing techniques. A close-up exchange in a romantic soap opera will signify a different meaning than, say, the close-up used in news footage of a convicted con man or a close-up in a horror film. More often than not, it's the context of the film that will determine the function of the framing. Of course, these features of framing are a part of every framed image. Paintings, photographs, sketches and cartoons are all framed in relation to height, level and distance. Specific to film and to television, however, is the frame's mobility. The frame's mobility is usually called camera movement, and the 3 most common types of camera movements are tracking shots, pans and tilts. Hello?
Hi Jude, it's Frank.
Oh, hi.
Have you seen my headphones anywhere?
Yep, they're right here on your desk. I'm looking at them right now.
Oh, damn. Okay, I might pop in later on to pick them up.
Okay, bye. A tracking shot occurs when the camera travels in one smooth movement in any direction, usually on a set of tracks called a dolly. Another common camera movement is a pan. A pan gives the impression that the frame is horizontally scanning space. This is where the camera moves from side to side from a fixed position. This technique can be used to give the impression that the character is scanning the room with his or her eyes. A tilt is a camera movement that is also from a fixed position, but in this case, the camera moves up or down. These movements can help the filmmaker draw attention to particular objects in the frame. brings us to editing. Once you become aware of editing, it's easy to notice. Film and television programs rarely use one continuous shot. Rather, they're a series of shots strung together. But the reason we sometimes forget about editing is because more often than not, it exists as a form of disguise. This is called continuity editing.
Continuity editing is very important. It's about relating images in a kind of a logical sequence. For example, there is no point cutting from, we might start with the classic establishing shot, the establishing shot of the house. Now, if we cut from a house to a spaceship, that's illogical. We're not expecting that. According to the principles of continuity editing, we wouldn't do that kind of editing. Continuity editing is sometimes that is broken up, but that principle of continuity is destroyed to give a certain effect, perhaps to heighten the idea of uncertainty, the idea of discomfort in the spectator watching the film.
There are other techniques used by film editors to ensure continuity. These include the eyeline match, where we are shown someone looking off screen and then shown what is being looked at. The shot reverse shot pattern, which is commonly used in conversations between characters. And the match on action, an editing device where movement is carried across the break in the shots. Editing, the narrative, mise-en-scène and camera angles are all important elements in understanding the language of film and television. And the greater we understand these elements, the greater we can understand what we see on the screen.
Who was that?
Who do you think it was?
I don't know, the killer dude. Oh, look what he did to my car.
So hopefully that gives you something to think about, how film and television's unique language makes meaning. And remember, if it's a horror film, you probably haven't seen the last of the killer. They're not that easy to get rid of. Frank.
Sorry.